I'm Charlotte Erdy, and I'm from Sky Talkers.
And I'm Caitlin Plusher, and I'm also from Sky Talkers podcast.
Thank you so much for talking with us today. We're so excited to be here and talking with you both. And this is for both of you, this first question, but let's start with Kanako. And let's start at the beginning. What was the initial pitch for Star Wars Visions? And did it stay the same? Did it change? And how so?
I think it didn't change. Original pitch to the studio is like, please explore your Star Wars story and tell us what's your perspective and tell your original stories in Star Wars universe. So from the beginning, it would stay the same, and then each director did a marvelous job.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed getting to watch these shorts. It was such a treat.
Great to hear.
James, this one is for you. It seems like creative freedom was a goal for this series. And is that true? And if so, can you expand on how that was relayed to all of the different studios creating these shorts?
Yeah, it was. I think, look, I think from the Star Wars perspective, we always want to bring the best out of talent, and we always want to help them tell to have filmmakers tell the stories they want to tell, right? And really find a way to work. So the unique perspective with this series, though, was we didn't want to be in a place where it had to fit within the timeline, and they had to be part of the main thrust of our core storytelling. So instead, we wanted this to be more of a celebration of Star Wars and really empower the anime studios and the filmmakers to stay within their process, to build anime and animation the way they normally do and approach it from that way, and use any of the elements of the Star Wars galaxy they wanted, which really unlocks the potential of doing things like the duel, right? Like that doesn't necessarily fit on a timeline. You don't get that unless you say, or twins, you don't get those types of stories unless you say, like, let's see what you can do with your form and with your medium. And what would you do to celebrate Star Wars? What story do you want to tell? That was really the perspective. And so, yeah, it was completely free. I think the only caveat to any of that is that we at Lucasfilm make sure we stay in dialogue completely along the way to be really good story editors and really good partners, and make sure that the stories are authentic Star Wars stories and have the storytelling values and heart and soul that, defines what makes a good Star Wars story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that celebration of Star Wars is such a good way to describe it, because I actually ended up watching these before Charlotte did. And I told her, I was like, it's like all of Star Wars layered on top of each other. And it's so cool how you get it. So I think that celebration was really well conveyed in the series. Our next question is for Kanako. Many of these shorts have kind of open endings. Can you talk about why some of these stories weren't given obvious, quote unquote, happy or conclusive endings? Particularly, I'm thinking about how the twins weren't reunited, Lop and Ocho weren't reunited. These are very kind of open-ended conclusions to these shorts.
I think that's a very unique storytelling of Japanese anime, or maybe Japanese storytelling itself. Like I see like a lots of open ending, like leaves room for viewers to explore or imagine what's happened next to these characters. So so this is like ask them to tell the Star Wars story, but from their own perspective. So I think that's a unique aspect they brought into this vision.
Definitely. This is a question for both of you. Whoever wants to answer it, feel free. T Obi-Wan was one of my favorite shorts. I loved it so much. And I thought it was really cool, this exploration of a droid who uses the Force, right? What was some of the discussion around creating this episode and exploring the concept of a droid becoming a Jedi?
I think obviously I love Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Great story. And it's a Pinocchio story, and it's a story about a dreamer who wants to aspire to be a Jedi and do great and heroic things, but happens to be a kid or a droid. I think that's wonderful, and it's so fundamentally a Star Wars story. Have we ever done a droid that's connected to the Force before? On our core storytelling? No. It's a really good question of would we ever do that? I think the answer is no. But I think it would depend on the creator and the conversations. But that's usually not the way the Force works from our perspective. But what worked here was visions, and this was also a love letter to a lot of anime and to shows and manga that inspired it and the creators enabled Bora. So it had the freedom to explore those ideas, within the context of visions. But really, our focus was the heart of it, was the Pinocchio story.
Yes.
And the story of a father and a son, essentially, even though it's a found father. That's the story. Really, more than the specificity of can a droid connect with the Force and become a Jedi.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's nothing more Star Wars than father and son stories in a way, so that totally works.
Yeah, I think that story had this kind of beautiful whimsy to it, and especially how it was animated, it just kind of captured me immediately. And I just kind of fell into the animation, into this like very bubbly world that was created. I really loved it. This kind of leads into my next question, which I'll go back to you, Kanako. The visual language of Star Wars is a hallmark of the franchise, and the Visions episodes really play around with this. Something that really stood out to me when I was watching the show was the use of color. It really stood out to me. Notably, I guess for Ronan, was its lack of color, the twins and the dichotomy of red versus blue. And then probably one of my favorites from the series was the Ninth Jedi with the lightsabers that changed color based on the character's intentions. Can you talk about how these episodes use the visual language of Star Wars and something like color to help tell their story?
Yeah, the one thing very unique about Japanese animation is like they explore lots of colors that live action is like a little challenging to achieve. And because of the 2D animation or 3D animation, like you can do that. And like you said, like twins, they use a very flamboyant colors to show the two side of characters. Ninth Jedi is like they like some like because it's animation, you can achieve that change of the color and the color of the lightsaber depending on the intention of the people wielding that. So I think that rich history of Japanese anime art form really like each director cleverly picking up like a what expression is the work best for Star Wars, and also they know the Star Wars, love Star Wars very much. So I think each of them did a very clever decision making on how each short would look.
Definitely, I completely agree. I think that it felt like watching each short from one to the next. I was really treated to like a buffet of color or lack thereof. It just felt like a really great sort of diversity of different styles, which is amazing. I have a question for James, and I think this kind of goes to what we were talking about before about sort of like Caitlin mentioned, like layering on top of each other, like the way that Star Wars feels. I was wondering if there was any sort of concepts that were pulled directly from like the George Lucas original drafts, because I noticed that there was a lot of emphasis on the Kyber crystals, which were pretty notably heavily included in the original drafts of George Lucas's Star Wars. And was there any sort of like touching upon those like original elements when exploring these stories?
Yeah, it wasn't a guiding light from Lucasfilm. It wasn't something that we in any way sort of drove. I think what it was more the fandom of these creators and the fact that the deep love for Star Wars, but also kind of like the really deep loves of Star Wars of people like us who have really gone into the mythology and like seen those drafts and seen what led to the ideas that ultimately became this thing we loved. I think a lot of these creators have seen that stuff and have thought about it and have loved this as an opportunity to kind of take some of those ideas and remix them or re-look at them and play with them a little bit. but it really comes, I think, from depth of knowledge and depth of interest in the elements of the Star Wars galaxy.
Totally. I think I would do the same thing if given the challenge. This is for either whoever wants to answer it. Is there a reason for the order in which the shorts are presented on Disney Plus, or was that just a creative choice that didn't have any meaning?
I mean, not like a philosophical meaning behind it, but a strategic meaning behind it. And what I mean by that we were so careful at the start of this to make sure that we selected a wide array of studios that explored all the kind of textures of anime. And so we picked a really diverse array of stories from these diverse studios. And so we wanted it to be a ride. We wanted that order to be sort of an introduction. The duel is such a great way to start start your journey, take your first steps into a much larger world, and then shift gears a lot and play with tones and play with expectations. So there was a lot of conversation around what was the best order. Does this make and break the way you think in mythology? Watch it. But there was some conscious thinking around, we feel like this will be a great order of what anime has to offer.
Yeah, I gotta say, the very last episode, seeing that ending with our main character kind of leaving with the villain, and then it was just kind of over. I was like, whoa, like I need to sit with that for a second. I thought it was so great, and I loved that choice. Especially to have that kind of as the ending episode for the series. Something you kind of touched on, James, was there are these tonal shifts depending on studios and the creators and their kind of personal fandom. But one of the other things that really kind of stood out to me was the music throughout all of these episodes. And especially in that last episode, I felt like it was kind of the most unique music I'd really heard in Star Wars. And I was wondering if one of you, I guess, Kanako, if you could talk about the use of sound and of the music choices in some of these episodes.
Sure. For this Ninth Jedi, so it's composed by Nobuko Toda and Kazuma Jinouchi. And Nobuko Toda, both of them are huge fan of John Williams. So they are just it's like a love letter from them to John Williams. And both director and composer know what they wanted to achieve. So I've been told there wasn't that much discussion between them. They just know okay, we knew it. This is what's gonna do. And so it's 20 minutes of a continuous score like John Williams did for a Star Wars series. So you see orchestrations from some of the shorts, and some of the shorts explore more different style of the music. So I hope everyone enjoyed the music as well as the animation too, because each of them are very different too. And then there's a rock band too as well.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say Tatooine Rhapsody. They really inform one another, the music and the animation.
Yeah.
We do have one last question, and it is a question that we ask all of our guests on Sky Talkers on our show. And we'll start with you, James, and end with you, Kanako. The question is, if you could have dinner with one Star Wars character, what character would you have dinner with?
Wow, that's a tough one. This is a foolish choice, because there is, once you start down the dark path, the dark side, where forever will dominate your path. But I would want to have lunch or dinner with Count Dooku, and kind of see what his initial motivations were, and hear it from him what he thought, if he thought that he could make a difference, and before he kind of became what he became. Of course, I know he's already far too lost, so this is a very stupid choice on my part. I end up getting a lightsaber for me, but at least it would be a good conversation. He seems like a good conversation.
I love Ewok so much, so I really wanted to join that a bonfire and dinner party that they had in episode 6. So yeah, that would be my dream buffet.
I love that answer. Thank you both so much. And I know we're at time. So again, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.